Welcome to my Heroic Azshara guide. Now this fight is really irritating. It's a good fight. I'm just not a big fan of the special mechanic here, so I'm gonna break it down how this works in all four phases, the intermissions and whatnot. This fight is much easier with less people, unfortunately. On our first kill, we did it with 16. It was an off night right before the reset, so we just used 16 people and we actually two-shot it. But it took us like 35 pulls the first time around to kill it. So let's go ahead and break it down. First off, you start the encounter by clicking the console and clicking accept here. Now, for pre-potions here, what you want to do is you want to wait until the floor lights up and then you pre-potion. Otherwise, you're losing time and losing seconds. So this starts out with two ads in phase 1. You have Aethanel and you have this other dude. I can't remember his name, can't see it. Basically, you want to start by pulling both on top of each other and just do as much cleave as possible, get all your meme beams going if you're using them, maximize damage. For this fight, I ended up using my flame essence because we wanted DPS and I didn't have the other essence I wanted yet. So we group them up and we just cleave on them. And you continue to cleave on them until you see painful memories, and then you just pull them apart. Let's look at these positioning real quick. So here's the console. This is where we started. We normally put two markers, one at this pillar, one by the other pillar, well then a third one at the console. So when we're looking at the floors, we can call out which one is charged by their symbol. So we can say charge nipple, and they'll run over here and charge it. So let's talk about that mechanic before we get started here. First off, you have a little icon here that Blizzard provides for you. Basically it shows 3 of these runes, and the yellow runes are runes of power, I believe is what they're called. Basically, if they ever deplete, they start AoE in the raid. So basically to charge it, you have to run on top of it and you have to soak it. So basically you give it power from your neck. So basically the idea is every stack that you're on there, you lose 10% of your maximum HP. So if you ever get 10 stacks, you're dead. Rule of thumb that we were trying to keep most DPS around 5 stacks max. Tanks, I normally go about 3 just in case. And that's really it. So the hardest part of this fight, or at least one of the hardest parts of the fight, is to make sure you manage these wards properly. There's also, or runes, there's also going to be a ward of power you'll see in phase 2. So right now they're all charged, we don't have to do anything. So with that being said, my camera angle changes here in a minute, so let me show this as well. In phase 1, right where my cursor is right now, where I'm just waving around, right next to nipple, is where the beacon spot is. So basically there will be a beacon here shortly in 30 seconds from this point, and she will pick anywhere between 2 to 3 people and you'll start walking towards this spot in phase 1. It's always this spot. If you get there while under the debuff, you get put in a bubble. This should not happen. This is DPS that you don't want to lose. So basically all range and healers, I've never seen melee get this. If you're running with all melee, they probably will, but I think it prioritizes range and healers. Just don't be anywhere near here. So just stay away from this middle part and you'll be fine. So they just cast painful memories, so what you need to do is you need to split them up. You have to LOS them. So we use the same pillar. He's over there, I'm over here. So just dodge the arcane orbs. Now, this tank here will get cold blessed. Basically, what's going to happen is at 3 stacks, the 4th one will freeze you, and then she will shatter. And when you get shattered, it'll remove the stun, but do like, I think on Heroic, anywhere like 200 to 1000 damage. It was only hitting me for like 180. Now, if you keep them in sight of each other, they'll do 165% damage, I believe is what it was, or 150% damage. So it will actually hit you for like 400k. So at no point should these ever be in line of sight of each other. I've seen strats where you group them up in between casts, but honestly there is really no point. If you're that low on damage that you have to constantly keep grouping them up and risking painful memories, then you probably don't have enough DPS to kill her in phase 4. So idea is you always keep them separated. I know some people like to taunt switch at 3 stacks, but honestly it's not worth it. As long as they don't have painful memories, you're fine. So A few other things, chain lightning, you want to interrupt it. Puddles in the ground, you keep moving them. I'm trying to, it drops on where you're standing. I guess I could always try to like game it and try to group back up, but I don't. So basically, I get as close as I can to the previous puddle. Both ads have to die at the same time. This ad will spawn. You'll get anywhere between 1 and 2. If you have really good damage, you'll only get 1. Otherwise, you will get 2. So what happens is this giant monster brute ad will spawn in the middle, run towards a rune. When he gets to that rune, you start pounding the rune, and if he does that, you're probably going to wipe. The idea is he can only be CC'd 1 time. And the best CC to use is a Rep Heli CC, the stun, because it's the longest stun. So if you use like a smaller stun, then you're just screwing yourself. And a lot of times, once he starts running, if you stun him right before a pillar, he'll actually turn around and run in a different direction. So the idea is when he spawns, use all DPS switch, all of it, be on it. Once he starts to run, you stun it with a Rep Heli stun. And then once he's unstunned, he'll turn and run somewhere else. And then he needs to die before he pounds a rune. Yeah, I turned my camera so you can't see it. He just dies, so nothing special there. So here's Cold Blast. I'm going to get stunned. And she's going to Ice Shard me. It's going to break this stun. And my HP never really moved much. So ideally, you don't want to taunt switch because you're risking painful memories. You're doing movement that you don't need to do, and you're lowering damage. Alright, so what's going to happen is you're going to see here Arcane Orbs in 1 second. I use this as the timer to group them back up. So once Arcane Orbs comes out, I group them back up in the middle for maximum cleave. Because Painful Memories is now over. Alright, so Arcane Orbs in Phase 1, you just have people soak it. There's nothing special there. Somebody has to be in every one, otherwise it's going to hurt you a lot. So you group these up, you start cleaving like crazy. They both have to die at the same time. If one dies before the other, it gets the giant buff on you and can actually one-shot a tank. It's happened. So keep switching. So at this point, Lawning, they have to be in LOS, so you just bring them back together. But we already did that, so it's not a big deal. So we're just going to kill both. At this point, the second ad spawns, but we had so much damage that we killed these so fast that they never spawned. The second big ad. So otherwise you would have to do it. So in Phase 1, Azshara is floating around and drains one of the runes of power. As you can see here, this one is. So what we do is we bring 1 or 2 people, or 3 people to charge it during the intermission phase. So I go over, I'm going to get my 3 stacks. Alright, so in the intermission, this is where you're going to wipe the most, more than likely. Is these decrees. This is where more people makes it harder because you have more people trying to deal with this. Arcane Orbs spawn, and then you can get one of like 5 or 6 different decrees. I can't remember how many off the top of my head. So this one is Together and Soak Orb. So Together always has this symbol here around you. Alone, you'll see another circle around you, but it's going to be like wind. You'll see here in a second. And then Soak Orbs, I have to be on an orb. There's ones like Together and Don't Soak, so you have to be somewhere and then Don't Soak. And then there's Stay, where it's a circle on the ground you can't move from. And there is another one, Move. So lightning will hit you if you don't move, so you just keep running in circles. So right there is the Alone, so you cannot be on anybody else. Here's the orbs I have to soak. And how we do this to make it easier is we put all the Together and Soak orbs at the same pillar. So it's always the orb closest to this pillar here. We just set that in stone. We're like, okay, every time you get this, if it's Together and Soak, the closest orb to this pillar. This leaves people who has Soak and Alone has options to soak the orbs. As long as they all get soaked, you're fine. Excuse me. So right here is the Don't Move. Yeah, the Don't Move. You can't leave the circle or you take damage. Right now he has Don't Move and Together. So he is now calling for help. You'll see that the good old J-Force here ignores him to the very end. By the way, if you don't follow the decrees, you get a stacking dot, and if you get too many of them, you will die. So I'm calling for a soak here on this orb. I need somebody else. And then finally somebody shows up to soak with me. J-Force is trying to soak with Gucci. And you see the movement ones and don't soak. And that's it. So the more debuffs you get, more likely you're just going to have people die. And if people die, you're not going to kill her. It just takes practice. So phase 2 starts. We keep her right where she's at. She has Beckon in this phase. As you see, it casts in 15 seconds. And what happens is Ranger healers will walk towards her. If they make it to her, then they get mind controlled. In this phase as well, what you're going to see is when you get Beckon, if you're near anybody else, you get a jealousy debuff and you run faster. So once Beckon's going to get cast, what you do is range and healers just spread out from each other and just wait. So in this phase as well, tanky debuffs basically increases the damage we take. We go to about 20 or 30 stacks. Once the other tank stacks falls off, you just taunt. There's no reason to let it go high. Excuse me, my voice is going away. So Ward of Power is the new one in phase 2, and it's the blue one. Basically, the more charged this is, the more damage she does. So in phase 2 and 3, it is very imperative you keep this low, very, very low. In phase 4, basically, it should already be low, so then you just focus on keeping the other ones charged. So right now, after Beckon, I call for range and healers to soak mid to get rid of it. And another key thing here is the closest rune or ward she is to, she either drains or powers. So if she's next to this rune here, she'll drain it. If she is next to the middle ward, she'll power it. So right now she's closest to the middle, so she's powering it, and that's our plan. We want her to power the middle ward for the first 2 rotations, and then we're going to soak it, and then we're just going to move her to the consoles. So right now she is powering it. Right here we have a whole bunch of devoted ads. So basically there's 3 sets of them. What we do is we AoE these ones down first. I'm going to AoE grip these 2 sets together, and then we're going to rain a piece of them out of the middle. If they get in the middle, they start casting Sacrifice, and they will kill themselves on it, powering the ward, which means she does more damage. This is bad. So right here you see, we'll DPS AoE those ones down. I'm going to move here. DH utility, what? Throw down Sigil of Chains. I'm going to grip all these together. They're gripped, and now we're going to rain a piece them out so they can't actually make it to the middle. These ones should be dead, but they're not, so we're going to finish those up. There we go. And now they're all dead. Right at this point, the ward is getting lower, which is good. We're going to move her towards the console because we know there's a giant AoE burst coming that's going to kill everybody. So now we move her to the console. And she's now draining this console. The ward is staying really low, so she's doing not a lot of damage. By the way, this add-on here tells me who has how many stacks. This allows me to do calls on the fly, so I can see if, say, Salir is not doing anything. He isn't, he's going now. So if I can see if he's not doing anything, I can be like, hey, Salir, go soak nipple. So at this part, we just TPS her here. And what we're going to see is this, first off, Reversal of Fortune. What's going to happen is she switches one of the runes with the Ward of Power. So it switched this rune with that Ward of Power. They switch. Basically, I don't know the duration on this. It's not too awfully long, maybe 30 seconds, and then it switches back. Also at this point, she's getting ready to cast her Arcane Detonation. She does this at 100 energy. Basically, it's an LOS ability or it's going to one-shot you. So we keep her here at the console. Here she goes. So we all LOS behind the console. There we go. So at this point, we're looking at this rune. We see this rune's getting lower. So we're going to bring her towards middle and start draining middle. And I'll be calling for people to soak the console. This phase ends at 67 or 65%. I should move to the outside. One part you're not going to see here is this giant ad's going to spawn, start walking very slowly towards the middle. It cannot be CC'd at all. You just turn and burn it. It dies pretty easily. You have to kill it. We push her so fast we don't see it, so most people will see it their first kill. Giant ad and 4 legs starts walking slowly. So we're going to DPS her here. As you can see, we're starting to charge this console, because remember, this is all about management of the power of the runes. So right here is the second intermission. This is basically identical to the first intermission. You just gotta deal with the decrees. So we're trying to maximize damage here. So yeah, I have Alone, and I'm gonna soak this. I'll have to soak in Alone. So I'm gonna soak this orb by myself. You're watching everybody do their thing here. So after this intermission, there's gonna be three ads spawn. There's going to be a Scar Scale. There's gonna be a Mistress, and there's gonna be a Myrmidon. Basically, what you need to do is you have to pick up the Myrmidon ASAP, or it will start one-shotting people like instantly. As soon as it spawns, you gotta taunt it, and then we move the entire group to wherever the Scar Scale is. She is random in 1 to 3 spots, but you always go to Scar Scale. Her energy starts lower, and you can kill her before her shield comes up. That is imperative. So pick up the Myrmidon, find Scar Scale, move everybody over. Alright, so stage 3 starts. She does her own cast. She has Chain Lightning. She has Drain Ward, so she'll start draining the ward. She has a whole bunch of different stuff. You just interrupt her. You see she has Drain Ancient Ward now. That needs to be interrupted. So right now we're maximizing all damage on her. She has to die. Beckon still happens. The Myrmidon will throw spears at people that do massive damage. It does damage for every person it hits, and it does massive AoE damage once it gets to the end. If there is no shield at your current target, you just tank on the wall. So you go to the edge of the wall and eat it, and nobody else should be over there. So right there's good positioning, away from everybody else. There's no shield, you bait it to the outside. Tank in here, we do the same taunt rotation, basically, but you can't have both Myrmidon and Azshara on the same tank, or they will die. So when it's my turn to taunt Azshara, he taunts the Myrmidon, vice versa. So first ad dies, now we move to the Venom Tome. What you're going to see here is the Arcane Detonation is back, so we're going to all LOS. She just put the shield up. He almost died. Should have died. So the shield is up now, so now we need to throw the spear through the shield. So there's the spear, and he gets lucky. I watched this video a little bit earlier. He gets lucky. He should stop right there. He should stop. But for some reason, he comes over here, and it somehow still hits her. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, one more big thing here that I didn't mention. If you look here, I forget what it's called. It's like the Grand Reversal. What happens is she turns all Runa powers into Warda powers, and all Warda powers into Runa powers. So what happens is if these are charged, she does massive damage because she's getting triple Warda powers here. They're all really low, so it's not affecting us, but you have to keep that in mind. You might need raid cooldowns at this point if these are all charged up. And then you have to watch this one Runa power, make sure it doesn't get empty, because you don't want that AoE damage. So shield's broken, we are managing this fine. Ad has to die. So she will transition into phase 4, either at 40% or when the ads die. There might be a way to bait this, so you transition her at 40%, but it's easier if we just burn the ads down to kill them. So once the shield's broken, we actually cleave off the Myrmidon. Well, actually we kill the Venom Ton, and we kill the Myrmidon. Because if we do our job right, there won't be any more shields, and this is just a lot of damage we no longer have to deal with. Yeah, I think we could have baited this out a lot better, because Queen is only at 49%. We just straight burn that ad. Yeah, so future kills. Alright, let's look at this. So phase 4 started, we're at 48%. And this is a huge DPS race in phase 4. If I would have them delay it to about 42%, that is 6% less damage we have to do in phase 4. So, kind of made a mistake here. So phase 4 starts. There is no intermission here. We're making sure, first thing first, you drain the ward of power in the middle. You just want it empty for this phase. And once that's empty, you have to keep these charged. This one is charged bad. The one we're at is going to be charged soon. So there's a few things here new in this phase. So here we go. New debuff is Void Touch. It lowers the amount you're healed over X number. So every stack is 10%. The rotation's at 4 stacks. So basically, when he's at 4, I'm going to taunt. When his falls off, he's going to taunt, and I'll be at 4. So every 4, you rotate the taunt. New mechanic here that people mess up, we messed up a lot, is the console gets charged. You have to do controlled charge releases. When you do it, it does first off a lot of AoE damage, so you want to do one at a time. You get debuffs. I can't remember the debuffs are off the top of my head. I should know that. But there's also one that gives you a buff that increases your haste by a shit ton and a lot of damage. So if you're the person that gets that, that's awesome. However, when that debuff runs out, you die. So what you want to do is you want to DPS as much as you can and charge a ward. You want to do 9 charges, 9 stacks, because you're going to die anyways. So you want to charge one of the runes as much as you can before you die. And then just DPS her down. We have a range DPS, in this case a boomkin, to release the charges when we call for it. There we have 1 overload. And if you ever hit 4 charges, it explodes and kills everybody instantly. So you have to actually release the charges. And right there we released 2 charges and took a lot of damage. Bad communication, so it should only be 1. She has this void circle that she puts down on the ground. Don't stand in it, and it stays for the entire fight. We drop 1 on the console because we're not very smart. So see how everybody's grouped up to the console? That's why it happens. They need to move. So now we just bring them to the different runes and just drain the highest rune. So one other thing that happens here, you'll see here in a second, is Piercing Gaze. So you see this giant eyeball? There's a giant line across the platform, and after like 2-3 seconds, it shoots. You cannot be in it or it's going to kill you. And it's easy to see, and there it goes. She did her grand reversal. All ward of power, so massive damage, below raid cooldowns, but then you see the middle one has no energy. We need to soak that and charge it. Alright, so now there's 2 overloads. We need to drain the console. And if you see this here, that means it's now doing AoE to us and it's bad. So I have no stacks, I'm going to mid to charge. And we trapped a portal on it. That's fantastic. Alright, so right now the ward of power is massive in the middle. It means everybody's taking a lot more damage. That's really bad. But we're at 12%, so we're just going to brute force it. We're still doing the console charges. And I want to point out, right now, she would be dead if we pushed phase 3 at 40%. And that's it, you stay out of the circles. Try to keep the runes charged so you don't get AoE to death and you just burn her down and dodge the laser beams. This phase isn't hard, but it can get out of control pretty quickly. Because right now she's hitting me for a lot, like a lot. And that's it. It's a very hard fight initially. It took us a lot more attempts than I expected it to. But it's a fun fight overall. And that's really it. If you have any questions about anything specifically, please put in the comments. I'll reply and let you know. And thank you for watching.